This is Pete Rose Score Baseball. I've run across a lot of these mechanical baseball games, and I decided that it'd be kind of fun to take a look at this guy here from 1979 and compare it to this more recent. Now, I believe this one is between 2022 and 2024. It actually doesn't have a copyright on it, but this more modern mechanical baseball game, and see what's changed and what stayed the same over the course of about 40 years or so. So first up, the 1979 Pete Rose Score Baseball game by illco. This is a trip. This cover art is great. It's got a picture of the game, shows you the bat in action. Then you've got some images of Pete Rose on the side. Obviously, the only thing licensed about this game was Pete's likeness and name, because he doesn't have any branding on his jersey for the Cincinnati Reds. So, and he's clearly wearing his Reds outfit. So that's kind of interesting, is this is not an official MLB product by any stretch. Now, this is a two-piece box with a bare corrugate cardboard lower section. So it's just the lift-off color print lid, very thin cardboard. It's got enough space to store the game nicely. However, this little plastic scoreboard on the back of the playset is meant to fold a bit. Now that it's gotten older, it's a little tougher to fit it back in the box without damaging that cardboard. So yeah, it had enough space at the time that this game came out, but as the parts start to wear, it's not so great. But again, a traditional kind of basic, this looks like the kind of thing that, I guess the best way to put it, looks like the kind of game that you'd buy off an end cap at the hardware store sometime, just because you saw it and thought it looked like a fun afternoon. So moving on, we've got the 2024, or at least we purchased this in 2024. This is called Classic Baseball by Merchant Ambassador. Now, this one I looked all over for copyrights on it. There's no year of production on it, and I didn't see any year of production on their website. But we picked this one up off an end cap at our local hardware store. We figured it was the best possible comparison, as they're both basically mechanical baseball games. This one, however, is licensed by Major League Baseball. We've got the official MLB logo. We've got the little foil sticker on here indicating it. We've got all the team branding on the game and the box. It shows a picture of the game. We've got, again, the bat and the ball in action there. When we flip this one over, we do have a picture of the game again and some close-ups of the more action-packed stuff. Now, this is something I want to call attention to. Be it that this is a licensed product, each team, they provided 90 different player pieces, each team getting 3 players. Now, they're little cardboard punch-outs that fit in these standees, but you actually can pick your favorite team and play as them. Now, this is a flip-top box with some little cardboard tabs to lock it closed. So there's plenty of storage inside for your game. And actually, one thing that did impress me about this game was that the small parts came in their own Ziploc bag, so they even provided a Ziploc bag. So points to Merchant Ambassador that they gave us a nice sturdy corrugate box. It's beautifully color printed. It very clearly represents the game, and it has plenty of storage for all your small parts. Now, I do not see myself punching out all 90 different player pieces here. It's nice to have the ability to pick who you want, but I think I am just going to stick with the 2 teams that I punched out. But you get these big sheets of the players, and it's nice that those came in a nice plastic sleeve as well. So I am glad that I can store those for later. So if somebody really wanted to change to the team, or if these get beat up and they need a refresh, I've got some backups. So that was pretty cool. Now, moving on to the gameplay set itself. Oh man, look at this. Now, first and foremost, the game is called Score Baseball Game. Pete Rose Score Baseball Game. And they tout that you can keep score. However, the only way that you can keep score are these tiny little rotating wheels up here on this scoreboard. And they go up to 19, but they've gotten a little fragile with age. They're these tiny little brass fittings that hold these cardboard wheels onto the back of this scoreboard, and you just got this tiny little number up here. It's a little frustrating because you can only keep score of runs. So yeah, this actually can play and is designed to play by the rules of a regular game of baseball, but you're not able to keep track of strikes, foul balls. You only get to keep runs, and also keeping track of who's on base. So if you actually want to play this proper, you are going to need a pen and paper to keep notes. However, that being said, it's kind of a neat little system. So you have these little holes here in the field, and when you hit the ball out in the field, it'll land into either a single, a double, a triple, a strike, an out, or a home run. And it'll actually show up here at the base of the board in these little grooves. It's got a little sorter underneath. So there's a little cardboard panel on the underside of the board, and the ball will roll along that. Now, how the pitching and hitting works is you place the ball here on the pitcher's mound, and when you pull back on this spring-loaded bat, there's a little post that'll lift up and roll the ball towards you. And you just release and try to get the best timing that you can to hit. What did I get? I got a strike. Oh, awesome. But you release in time to try to get the best hit that you can. It's a lot of fun. It's very simple. It's very lightly constructed. So, obviously, production costs weren't very much. The art on the game play set itself is kind of interesting. It's very cartoony on the field here, and then this looks like a photograph that they just took of a stadium and fit into here. Everything's very out of focus, but it serves its role. It's kind of nice. Now, as far as playing 1 to 2 players, it's fun to play around with as a single player, but I did play test this in a 2-player game. We kept track of score with a pen and paper, and I thought that kind of took away from the experience, especially considering that when you play 2 players, you're basically taking turns going at bat, and the field player has no active role in the game, so they have no way of showing any skill for their part. So it's all about who basically hits the best, and honestly, there is a lot of skill involved, but it's very random. So there's a lot of random chance. So interesting. This is a lot of fun. You can play a whole 9 innings. I probably wouldn't. It's fun for like 2 or 3 just to settle like a friendly wager or something like that. Now, moving on to the 2024 or circa 2024 classic baseball game by Merchant Ambassador. So again, this is pretty neat. We picked this up at a hardware store, just like we speculate this one came from. I was kind of surprised by this. That's sort of what brought this whole comparison together. Was serendipity brought me 2 baseball games, and I thought it was neat that there's about 40 years difference between the 2 of them. Now, both of these games are mechanical. This one's a little bit more advanced, but it doesn't have the sorting track underneath like what Pete Rose baseball has. So in this instance, you have these little fielder cups that catch the ball, and the ball in this one is actually a little metal ball bearing. You have a pitching machine here, and the person playing the field position has a little switch in the back of the board. It's a little spring-loaded switch. So 2 players playing against each other get to take an active role, whether they're at bat or playing the field. Another neat point of note is if you're at bat, you can choose whether your batter is a righty or a lefty, and it still controls with that single spring-loaded switch at the end of the board. Also, neat little thing here, if you're pitching, there's a magnet on the board right between the pitcher's mound and the plate, and the switch that you pull back to pitch has a little bit of play near the end. It's kind of a wedge-shaped track, so you can use that to throw a curveball, and it lightly controls the direction that the ball goes. Now, the thing is, it's imperfect, and one thing that I did notice that I'll right away throw as a critique with this pitching machine is if you don't throw with full power, you can actually get the bearing stuck on that magnet. So you can see the magnet's located right about there. So every pitch you make, you have to pull that switch all the way back and let it go. And getting used to throwing a curveball can be really tricky. Now, one thing I do like is when it scores behind the plate, you do have to get your pitch over the plate or it will go into one of these cups, scoring it as a ball. So that's kind of neat as well. It's not just directly a strike if you miss it. And they have a good divider up here. Now, they got rid of the option to score a triple, which is in Pete Rose baseball. And instead, you have 2 chances to score a double, 2 chances to score a single, 1 chance for a home run, and of course 2 out chances here as well. And you've got your foul out here by the foul line. The scoring is great. You have some simple dials, so you can track your innings, you can track your runs. Now, your runs, they limit how many, I think it's up to 9. So that's one thing. It was kind of funny when we play tested. We ended up turning the dial over a couple times on one of our games, so that seemed like a little bit of a tight limit, but I understand at the target age group, it might be kind of tough to score a run in this. I also like that you can track outs, strikes, and balls, and it's very easy. I mean, it's just a simple, there's not even a click. These are just a simple little smooth dial, and you just line the pointer up. So again, elegant in its simplicity. Now, these player pieces that you get are to track who's on base, and I really like that because that's that final scorekeeping piece. And of course, since there can be a maximum of 3 players on base, you only need 3 players per team. So it's perfect, it's streamlined, it works well with their whole design of giving you these little cardboard guys. Now, one thing is, obviously these little fielder cups here for catching the ball are placed to try to line up with where they might be in a real game of baseball. However, your basemen are such that if you were to place your little character here, he can block your hit pretty easy, even if it's well within the foul line. So I recommend if you're playing, place them behind these little catcher cups, especially considering the one that goes on third base ends up right behind the pitcher. So first and third base, when we were play testing, we were calling it fair game to set these guys back here because we're really only paying attention to who's on base and not trying to interfere with the game. So the biggest shortcoming that I had with this really was that pitching magnet. The pitching machine is nice, but you don't want to overload it. It came with quite a few little ball bearings, which is awesome. But when we loaded all of the ball bearings, we started getting double feeds and having trouble with precision with it. So loading about half the amount of bearings for a game and then just taking them back out and reloading them is the best way to go. You didn't need a pen and paper to play. This board is really solid. One detractor is this board is designed for the game to play on an absolutely level surface, which is not always the easiest. And I will say that when we unpacked this, the little foam rubber pads on the underside were not perfectly level. These two by first and third base were actually a little bit shorter, so it wobbled from one side to the other. Now, it was a pretty easy fix. We literally just put a napkin under each side and boom, we're ready to go. But it is something to be aware of, that the game is finicky enough that much variance in how level it was can make a difference in the game. Now, usually with those little foam rubber feet, once this gets old and it sits on a tabletop for a little while, give it a few days, it'll settle in and be just fine. So I'm not overly worried about that. But great game. This was awesome. They've actually even got some other versions on their website as well that have a little bit more detail, but I like that no batteries are required. It plays to the same rules as baseball. Both of these do. And since we're talking about the rules, let's get on to that part of the show. This was delightful here. This 1979. Okay, so this was produced in Hong Kong, and I have heard people say the phrase instructions written on rice paper, and I've never actually experienced it, but this has got to be, I'm almost positive that this is a really nice rice paper. It's super thin, it's super snappy. It has a great feel to it. I found it fascinating. As soon as I felt this, I was like, oh, this is not your average printer paper. And I noticed this was produced in Hong Kong. So thought that was cool. It's a single sheet. It just explains the rules of a regular game of baseball, scoring and everything. However, what I thought was funny is they're very intense about it. It's written in all caps. So this is a very serious set of instructions, but single side black and white print. Very nice, very straightforward. You don't really need many frills. And again, that totally tracks as something that you would find as kind of a budget game option. You're not going to get fancy instructions. Now, when we get onto this, oh, okay. So this one by Merchant Ambassador, now we are looking at a nice 20-pound bond paper wood pulp, probably like a 92 bright. This is close to like an 11 by 17. Oh, just nice, snappy. So if we're gonna go paper quality, I'm not ripping on the rice paper, but we do have a nice quality instruction book. It tells you how to put everything together. It walks you through the scoring yet again. Very thorough. Everything that you need. I was just surprised that I combed all over this, and I wanted to find what the date of production for this game was, and I could not find it in here, and I could not find it on their website. So if anybody happens to be familiar with this product from Merchant Ambassador and you know when it was actually produced, let me know. But this was purchased in 2024, just after the holidays. So great instructions on both sides. They don't need to be overly complicated. The rules of the game are the same as the sport. So let's get to the comparison here when we're actually looking at the nuts and bolts, pros and cons of each one of these. I really like the sorting system that they have in this, in the 79 Pete Rose Score baseball game. I actually really enjoy this just from the nostalgia's sake. It has a very kind of like almost cheap pinball machine feel with the way that the board is raked forward. It doesn't have to be on a perfectly level surface. Yes, it's kind of a cheaper quality construction, but it's fun. It gets the job done. This is kind of one of those impulse, what they would call like a rack toy. A lot of times you see those very cheap licensed toys that don't even really make sense to the franchise. It's just more of a logo printed on it. I mean, this makes sense. It's a baseball game. They got Pete Rose. But still, you'll find these kind of cheaper games, and this is perfectly in line with that. I think it's a lot of fun. If I had my choice, though, between this and one of the more modern iterations, given the build quality, I mean, you've just got brass fittings holding this tag board together for your scoreboard, and it hardly tracks the game. So this is a fun curiosity, and especially if you're a baseball fan who really admires Pete Rose, as he was, Charlie Hustle. He's one of the most iconic players to ever swing the bat. So by all means, this is a wonderful piece of memorabilia. I think it's a lot of fun, but if I'm rating on like actual gameplay and what I would like to play, hands down, this guy here, Classic Baseball from Merchant Ambassador, this would be my choice. I like the fact that you can play two-player actively, in that both players can have a really nice strategic role in their success as far as the skill of the pitcher or skill of a batter. I like that it keeps score. I like that the scorekeeping is just a simple dial that's very hard to break or misunderstand. My complaints about the pitching machine are relatively minimal. We did have some double feeds, we did have some jams, and yes, if you don't throw it full throttle, it can catch on that magnet. I did find that frustrating. So we did have a number of do-overs when I was playing with my friends, just to kind of, be fair. I don't think it's anybody's fault when the mechanism fails. But this was most definitely the more fun game to play, especially being able to track who's on base. So mechanical baseball games, there's a huge variety out there too. Have you played them? What do you think of them? What do you think of Pete Rose baseball? Comment below, let me know. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.